production. What we accomplish in the next few years is going to be defining for our nation and for the world for the 21st century. I'd like to acknowledge an important fact that Tennessee, my home state, is at the forefront of many of the priorities that you've highlighted in your testimony today. And that's why I encouraged you to make our state one of the first stops that you made as Secretary of Energy, and I'm delighted that you were able to do that, to visit us in Oak Ridge, just days, frankly, after being sworn in. I'd like to talk about the Genesis mission that you so kindly articulated just a moment ago. You've described it as the third scientific mobilization since the Manhattan Project and the Apollo space program. It's an ambitious effort. It's one that will advance scientific discoveries, advance our national security, and it will accelerate new energy technologies through the use of high-performance computing. It'll bring together the Department of Energy's national labs, industry partners, and American universities. And while the Genesis mission is a multi-lab effort, much of the computing capacity is going to be housed, guess where? At Oak Ridge National Laboratory in East Tennessee. Through the deployment of LUX, expected to be operational later this calendar year, and Discovery, which will be delivered in 2028, Oak Ridge National Lab will serve as one of the primary operational hubs for next-generation artificial intelligence and quantum high-performance computing. Secretary Wright, as your department advances the Genesis mission, how will the deployment of next-generation computing translate into real-world advances in energy, national security, and economic growth? And additionally, if you could just ask one more question, how does the Genesis mission position the United States as a global leader in this next-generation capability compared to how our adversaries will perform in their investments in similar technologies?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Thank you for the great state of Tennessee that, as you mentioned, Oak Ridge was critical for winning World War II. The nuclear age began there. The nuclear renaissance is in full throttle in the state of Tennessee. And you're right, LUX will be the very first compute expansion for our whole Genesis mission AI. So the private companies, as we all know, are spending $600 billion this year in building compute. Compute for business applications, for personal services, for their business. What Genesis mission is about, we want to harness that computing power, some of their computing power, some of our own computing power, to advance the scientific mission, to advance scientific discovery, to advance things that can enhance our national defense, both on the defensive side and on the offensive side, and on energy production. So to give a couple quick examples, I went to college to work on fusion energy over 40 years ago. AI and high-performance computing is going to make something we've slowly approached cross that threshold that we're going to be able to harness more energy out of fusion than we could before. And it's by a more technical reason about how we can reduce simulations into these replicators, but AI is going to change the game there. It's going to make the design of nuclear reactors much cheaper and the operations of them maybe cut in half in expense. This research with protein folding and specific isotopes for cancer treatment, pioneered again in Oak Ridge, is going to transform the future prospects of healthcare. Diseases that were death sentences are going to become manageable conditions. So harnessing the data sets in our lab, the scientists in our national lab, combined with this computing power, I think we will see just an incredible age of scientific discovery and engineering progress that'll benefit our whole country.
Secretary Wright, could you contrast that then to the investments that our adversaries are making in a similar arena when you think about the Genesis mission and what our adversaries may be trying to attempt?
Yeah, so China is investing massively in AI as well. Their focus is dominantly defense and weapons research, and it's something we must respond to. We cannot have China get ahead of us in AI in the area of defense.
So speed's critical.
Security. It's critical. We cannot be second in AI. Like the Manhattan Project in World War II, that's a competition you can't be second in. We've had a great world for 80 years with the United States as the dominant economic and military power. We need to assure that age continues. But our adversaries are obviously, they have a different agenda. And if they move fast and they lean in and invest, they build tons of new coal plants and nuclear plants and hydroelectric dams, and we say we're not going to allow their construction, only power when the sun shines and it's not behind a cloud and when the wind blows. We'll get crushed in the AI race, and that's unacceptable.
No, the sense of urgency, and as you describe it, is palpable. I'm particularly concerned about quantum computing and where we might land if we're not leading in that race. Could you comment a little more about that?
Quantum computing has some cool applications, scientific and technically. You're probably alluding to its thing for code and passwords and data security protection. If we are not leading in quantum and China develops quantum decryption, they'll be able to read into all of our systems and understand everything we're doing. We think we got secure systems right now, not if you have a quantum-enabled adversary. We need to be first to quantum. We need to have quantum-enabled safety on our encryption systems. You're right. Quantum is another one of those game-breaking technologies that we must lead on.
Thank you for making the imperative so clear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator
Senator.
Coons.